Hi everyone, Luke Filmboss, and I just saw Raya and the Last Dragon in theaters. And to my surprise, the movie theater's parking lot was almost completely full outside of like one other spot. And while the inside of the theater wasn't quite as packed, my showing had about 10 or more people, which was more than there was when I watched The Croods 2. The whole movie theater as a whole had consistent business. There was actually at least probably about two or so people in line at a time. There were people walking throughout the different hallways, and each theater had a small crowd, but still a crowd, meaning that there is business, as we saw with Tom and Jerry last week. And I just think it's interesting to see how movie theaters are starting to have a small comeback, especially when comparing to like how things were back when I saw the New Mutants, Tenet, and The Croods 2. Things are much busier, and I am very happy for the movie theaters as a whole, and can't wait to see how things are going to be going. Also, just before I get into the main review for Raya, the short film that plays exclusively in theaters before Raya shows was pretty much perfect in every way. I was surprised. I completely forgot that the short film was going to be playing before Raya. But wow, it was very surprising. I am glad that they surprised me with the short film that I forgot about, because it was great. It was emotional. It tells a story without even having to say any words. It was great, and kind of sets the bar high for Raya, except it doesn't really, because a short film and a movie both serve two very different purposes. So, enough of me rambling on about the theater experience. Let's get on to the main review for Raya and the Last Dragon. So if you're worried about spoilers, don't worry for this section. I'm just going to be giving some non-spoiler details about the movie, but there will be spoilers ahead, and I will warn you when spoilers are coming. But for now, we're just going to get into non-spoiler discussion. So Raya and the Last Dragon is just a grand, epic, large-scale world and character-building movie. It's just fun. It's great. It's got a lot of good stuff in it, but also a lot of bad, and we'll get into that later in the video. But the biggest thing I'd say, one of the biggest things, is visually, this is one of Walt Disney Animated Studios' most visually stunning films, and that's, a lot of movies are outdoing themselves, and especially Disney, but they really did it this time, mostly because of the world that they built, the landscapes, the design of the culture and everything that they've created here, and just the colors and the way everything is done with the lighting. I think that this movie definitely qualifies for the phrase, every frame a painting. It's just a very visually gorgeous film. This movie is an action adventure film, and as you watch, you really get the feel of that and understand it. I think that this is the first Disney princess movie that isn't a musical, and I applaud the filmmakers for doing that, for making that choice, because it really lets this story feel a little bit more grounded and down to earth, rather than having our princess break into song every time she feels something. We get to see a kick-butt warrior princess who knows martial arts and goes on these heists while not breaking into the invincibility of a Captain Marvel or Malong kind of character. She really struggles. Raya has her struggles and her core flaws in her character. It's just done very well. I loved Raya as a character, and her story and her arc all work very well. But yeah, definitely a big change from the regular Disney princess, breaking the norm, and I loved it. Even though this movie doesn't have musical numbers that are sung vocally by the characters, the music is one of, if not the best parts of the movie. The musical score just really helps you feel the emotion, the suspense, the excitement, and just drives that further than most films do with their music. And it's just very good. It's not like memorable to the point where after watching the movie once or twice, you'll be able to hum the notes to yourself. But I think that it has such a distinguishable soundtrack that if you heard it, you would probably be able to connect it to the movie if you've seen it once or twice. Before I get into spoiler talk, I just want to break down the three sections of this movie, beginning, middle, and end. So the beginning is a bit of a mixed package. So there's some scenes and a prologue that could have been better, but there's also some great character development, especially for Raya, and a lot of things are set up nicely for the rest of the movie. The middle is where the movie shines. The middle is just a big quest where we befriend new characters, we adapt to new places, and we explore the themes and the messages of the movie. In comparison to the beginning and middle of the film, the end is a bit hard to place. It has some of the best scenes and moments. The visuals are great, by far the best in the movie, but some of the closure just feels forced, or seems like it could have been done in a more impactful way than what we got. I'm warning you now, this next section contains major spoilers, so if you don't want spoilers for this movie, I would suggest skipping to the end of the video where I give my final score and thoughts. But let's get into spoiler talk. There's a lot of storytelling decisions that aren't technically bad, but aren't as effective as other storytelling choices would have been for this movie. For example, did we really need a flannel graph type prologue that explains the history of the dragons and the tribes, especially when most of that information is given to the audience later in the movie? Like, couldn't the writers, come up with some organic, clever dialogue or scenarios weaved into the beginning that conveys the information and history to the audience through actual storytelling? The next problem is with the story itself. In the first act of the movie, teenage Raya befriends the princess of the Fang tribe, and for a short while, we actually start getting attached to this friendship. Until we realize that the friendship was never real, and that the princess of the Fang tribe was just using Raya to get to the magic dragon crystal thing. This does work to establish Raya's distrust in people, but why did the friendship have to be fake, as it's blatantly pointed out to be? Why couldn't the Fang princess show a little remorse for her actions, or hesitation in her choice? I guess it's because we have to establish the princess as a cold-hearted villain character, right? Except for about halfway through the movie where we realize that the princess does regret her choice and does want to see peace. But wait, why? There are no scenes that establish the princess's change of heart until after she comes face to face with the dragon. And even that doesn't work because beforehand, we are just led to believe that everything we learned about her through that beginning scene of her and Raya being friends was all false, and we've also been led further on to believe that she doesn't care about dragons. What we get is a character who we don't really care about, whose personal ideas and convictions seem to contradict themselves. The Fang Princess really doesn't have an identity of her own outside of just following her mother's commands. That is until her mother turns to stone. And then we get the Fang Princess's best moment in the movie, which quite frankly happens to be one of, if not the best moments in the movie. To explain this, I have to go back in time in the story a little tiny bit. Like I said, there are spoilers ahead. Because of the dragon Sishu, Raya trusts the Fang Princess one time, which backfires, and the princess pulls a crossbow on Raya and Sishu in order to do her mother's will. The princess has her finger on the trigger and is beginning to pull it slowly, but after a short speech from Sishu, the princess is considering taking her finger off of the trigger. Raya, on the other hand, is so caught up in the fear of the distrust that has been built up that she tries saving Shishu by disarming the princess, which only leads to the trigger being hit, resulting in the death of Sishu. Sishu's death results in a number of events that lead to the princess's mother being turned to stone. Raya blames the princess for the death of Sishu, and the princess blames Raya for the death of her mother. Finally, we get a tense, emotionally two-sided fight between our main hero and our main villain of the story, which still would have been made better if there was an actual friendship between these two characters. Then Raya wins the fight, and the princess gives a sad speech, which makes Raya see the error of her thinking, and then, by the end, the princess helps Raya and her crew, and Raya unites the world by making the hard choice to trust the princess, trusting that she'll do the right thing, and put the pieces of the dragon gem together and save the world. This finale does have some great emotional, impactful moments, and it does convey its message rather well. But then there's some parts that just make it feel cheap and predictable, so it's a little bit of a disappointing finale. But overall, the finale itself is powerful and does work. And then comes the closure, where everyone unites and everyone's friends and it's all a big happy ending. I mean, sure, they had to bring Sishu back to life. It's a kids movie. They couldn't kill Sishu off in the first film, and seeing all of the dragons was cool and it was beautiful. Some of the best visual moments of the movie. And the ending is fine. It's enjoyable enough, but it just feels like such a average cliche kid movie ending where everyone and everything is happy and there's no consequences whatsoever. So yeah, despite this movie's flaws, I thought this movie was actually pretty good. In some cases, even pretty great. I give Raya and the Last Dragon an 88% in quality and 84% in enjoyment for an overall score of 86%. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell to help you be on the lookout for more videos from Luke Film Boss.